Not only is this one of the easiest sewing projects I've ever done, but it also involves zero ironing. Hey guys, welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jen. This channel is all about making sewing and crafts fun and approachable. I'm really pumped about this project. I had the idea in my head and I was like, I gotta do this. So if you're new to the channel, I've covered this before, but I really like to source textiles from stores like Target in the forms of sheets and tablecloths. I've done projects before here from both of those items. It's a great way to get larger cuts of fabric, and if you shop the clearance aisle like I do, you can get some really great deals. Recently, I was window shopping a little bit on Target.com, happened to see this gorgeous tablecloth. It was 100% cotton, 70 inches round, and it was only $12. And what I loved about it is it had like a really cute plaid print, but it wasn't overly fall colors, like just a bunch of browns. It was some shades of orange, cream, it had a teal running through it, and it also has some raspberry. So I thought it was a really fun fall, like holiday season-y vibe. And I don't know what it is about this year, but I just feel like I'm really getting into the seasons for some reason in 2021. I'm not usually that type of person, but here we are and here I am. So I was looking at a few tutorials on upcycling tablecloths into skirts. I saw quite a few of them on Pinterest, but a lot of them involved an exposed elastic band for the waistband. And I wanted to come up with a method where there was elastic. Obviously, I knew I probably had to do something like that, but where the elastic was not visible from the outside of the garment. For real, this is one of the fastest things I've ever done in my life. I thought this was a cool upcycling project, and the 70-inch round size was perfect because if you lift it up from the middle, it starts off about 35 inches, and then when you cut out the middle for the waistband, it's a little bit even less. I know I'm not too much of a math person, but I decided to come up with my own method for upcycling a tablecloth into a circle skirt. I think my method worked pretty well. I started this project last night at like midnight, for real. Like I didn't even start doing anything until after midnight because I had to pre-wash the fabric, and then I was done by 1:30. So if you're not filming this and you're a little bit faster, this skirt is going to take you under an hour to make. And I didn't even realize this at the time, but I didn't even pull out the iron once, which if you do any sewing, you know is very rare. So let's get into what I came up with the tutorial. And towards the end, I'll share a few more tips for how I usually like to source materials like tablecloths and sheets, and also what kind of things I'm looking for because I am kind of picky about it. You can certainly go to a thrift store like Goodwill and try to source this stuff as well, so you don't always have to go to the store. I just really gravitate towards Target because I tend to like the prints. But definitely keep going to the end because I'm going to share some recommendations for like what types of fiber you're looking for, you know, what I do about pre-washing, stuff like that. But let's get into it. Here is the packaged tablecloth by the in-house brand Opal House. It's a Target exclusive and I've bought other items from the line. There are care instructions on the back and I followed those to pre-wash the fabric. Let's rip this baby open. I ran it through the washer on a tap cold cycle and a short low temp dryer cycle. Because of the intense color, I threw in 2 Shout color catchers to help absorb any runny dye. 2 hours later, we're back with a freshly washed tablecloth, and this took a few minutes, but you're going to fold it into quarters by folding it in half once, then again. This next part's a little embarrassing, but I took my hip measurements to find out the widest part of my body that the skirt will need to fit over. I'm around 40 inches, so I'll need to cut the opening bigger than that. This diagram shows the circumference is the measurement all around a circle, and the radius is measured from the center to any point on the circumference. Using this website, I was able to easily calculate what the radius is by entering the circumference or waist measurement and the unit, which is inches. It's about 6.36 inches, and I'll be rounding that down a bit to 6 3/8 of an inch. Back at my work surface, I'm taking a ruler and an air-soluble marking pen and measuring out 6 3/8 inches from the center to various points in order to form a semicircle. I started from one edge and worked my way to the other side, moving the ruler on the center point as an axis. Also keep in mind the opening will be slightly bigger because you'll be folding in the edge to create the waistband. Then I connected all the dots to create a solid cutting line. I marked lines at each fold of the quadrant that I'll be using a little bit later. With fabric scissors, I carefully cut out the opening. Unfold the tablecloth so it's now a half circle. I went back and made sure I had marking lines separating each quadrant of the circle opening on both sides of the fabric. For the waistband, I selected 1-inch elastic that has a plush side and it'll be more comfortable against my skin. I wrapped it around my waist at the spot where I want the skirt to sit, overlapping it by about 1 inch. It should be stretched a bit, but not super tight. Cut the elastic to your desired length. In hindsight, I should have cut mine about 2 inches shorter. I think sewing the elastic may have stretched it out, and my waistband ended up a bit loose. Quick note, I used Mettler Seraflex thread for this project. It behaves like normal thread, but it's made of a material that gives it up to 65% elasticity. My hope is that using this thread eliminates the dreaded popped stitches issue. Here are the first sewing machine settings I used for the elastic. Lining up the ends of the elastic right sides together, I stitched them with a generous seam allowance forward and back. For me, this was the plush sides together because I want that side to be exposed on the skirt. The elastic is now a closed loop, and I finger pressed the seam allowance open. On either side of the center seam, I stitched additional lines to secure the seam allowance down. I've got the tablecloth right side out, the folded hem is underneath. Starting at one of the 4 marks I drew to denote each quarter, I matched up the edge of the fabric with the plush side of the elastic. You'll have to decide which part will be the back of the skirt, and I chose the quadrant that had the tag sewn to the hem. The back of my skirt is where I positioned the seam of the elastic and pinned on each side. Pulling the elastic away, find the opposite halfway point, which will be pinned to the opposite side of the circle. Find the halfway points on each side between the front and back and pin to the marks on the tablecloth. Here's what I have now. There will be excess fabric in between the pins compared to the elastic. The tablecloth and elastic are divided into 4 equal sections by the pins. Next up at the sewing machine, we'll be sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance with a 3.0 stitch length. Starting right before the seam in the elastic, drop a few stitches to begin. This part's a little tricky. Stretch out the elastic to match the length of the fabric up to that next pin. I found it best to use both hands to grasp the material both behind and in front of the presser foot. Every few inches, adjust the fabric if the edge is out of whack with the elastic. They should roughly line up with each other. When you sew up to the pin, get as close as you can, remove it, then repeat using the next pin as your guide on how much to pull the elastic. If you're new to sewing, I'd recommend checking out my Learn to Sew series all about using a sewing machine featuring the Brother CS7000i. Work your way all around the opening until you get back to the starting point. Overlap the stitches about 1 inch to lock them in. With the elastic now sewn to the outside of the skirt, you'll fold the elastic down on the inside. There will be a nice 1/4 inch lip on the inside waist, which hides the elastic from being visible at the top of the skirt. Place a few pins to secure at the front, back, and both sides. For our final round at the sewing machine, I chose a 3-step zigzag stitch number 5 to hold down the elastic waistband. Again, I started right at the back of the skirt and used the guideline on the needle plate marked 2, which denotes 2 centimeters. I held and stretched out the elastic, just like before, so the length matched up with the fabric. Every few inches, you'll want to adjust the fabric so it's laying flat and even. Whenever I sew on stretched out elastic, I do usually get some skipped or wonky stitches. The good news is that it's not that noticeable because the fabric is gathered on the project. Sew all the way around the circle, and when you get back to the starting point, which should be the back, overlap the stitching about an inch. And this is the finished circle skirt. I really like that the elastic is hidden. The only thing I do differently is cut the elastic a little bit shorter, because I'm wondering if using a 3-step zigzag permanently stretched it out, making the finished waistband larger than it was initially. And I'll be honest, I thought there was a pretty good chance of this being a sewing fail, but it actually worked out really well. Some recommendations, though, when I'm shopping for materials like sheets or stuff like tablecloths, I will usually look for 100% cotton fabrics. I really like to sew with woven fabrics. I'm not like super into the stretchy stuff, but when I do, I like to go for a more natural material. So I don't know if I would recommend this project for like a polyester tablecloth. At most, maybe like a 50-50 cotton poly blend, because I just find that I just like the way cotton drapes. I like the way it flows. I did pre-wash this because it is cotton, it does shrink a little bit, so I wanted to make sure that I was working with pre-shrunk fabric. So I threw this in the washer dryer. That's why I didn't start sewing it until midnight. Great thing about it, the bottom was already hemmed, so that saved me a ton of work. And I just really love the way the skirt turned out. I love the plaid. I'm getting more and more into plaids for some reason, and I want to try to rock this. I think I bought a cream sweater also from Target. I'm gonna link it below because it is really cute. I'm gonna rock this with like a sweater, my Ugg boots. You could also wear like equestrian style boots. I think I have a pair of those. You could throw a jean jacket on over it. You could wear this with a t-shirt. There's just so many ways to style the skirt. I also love that the length goes below my knees. I'm almost 40. I don't really like mini skirts. I don't think that's the best style for me. I want to try to wear stuff that's a little more age appropriate. The length is perfect, plus it doesn't show my legs. My legs are pretty gnarly looking right now. I live in Florida and I have a ton of bug bites. Don't know why. I don't really go outside, so that's pretty weird. But I can see myself wearing this skirt for like Thanksgiving, even like into the holiday season. I don't really party much, but I guess if I have to go anywhere, I can do that. Or if I want to look like I'm like an aspiring Instagrammer, I could do that. I just need to get the hat. Like, do you know what I mean? Like everybody's got that hat. So I feel like I need that like Instagram hat. I don't even know where I get one. Also, I have like this leftover circle of fabric from the tablecloth. What should I do with this? Should I try to make a skirt for the rabbit? I don't know. You know, I guess I could turn this into maybe a little beret. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. If you're shopping at Target, that's my favorite place to get textiles like that because they always have them in the clearance section. So there's the end caps, and I think I've talked about this before, but that tends to be where you can get the deals. I happen to get this online. Unfortunately, this particular style is no longer available, but Target does have other 70-inch tablecloths. So I like to shop what's on sale. Again, $12. And I had this super cute skirt. I saw some skirts online, even if you go the fast fashion route, they're like $20. I feel like this is one of the few times where sewing actually does save money. Typically when I'm sewing garments from scratch, the fabric is not cheaper than buying it at a store, but in this particular case, it is. I just like the way it turned out. I can see myself wearing it. It's pretty comfortable. I'm excited about this, and I thought it was a good upcycle. But let me know below in the comments, do you guys have secrets for sourcing cheap but good fabric? Like, what do you guys like to do? Target's been like my go-to place. I've gotten some sheet sets that I turned into dresses. I've done some other stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun just to source fabric. Plus, if you're making a muslin for garments, cheap sheets, old sheets are a great way to go where you're not breaking the bank. We all like to try to stick to a budget and save money where we can. A lot of people think we do it to save money, but it can be a pretty expensive hobby. So I'm excited to bring you this little budget buster here. And I was just so surprised I finished the project so quickly. Plus, I was really tired while I was doing it. So it's not like I was even that alert, but I think this one definitely a win for me here at the Sewing Report. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. And you're welcome to subscribe if you would like to see more sewing and crafts here at the Sewing Report. And remember to hit that notification bell. I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. I'll see you guys again in the next video. And remember, whatever you're doing, make it fun.